Buenas tardes a todos. Con muy poquitos minutos de retraso va a dar comienzo la conferencia de Kathryn Gustafson, que como podemos comprobar es merecedora de mucha atención y de mucho interés por parte sobre todo de los arquitectos, pero también de los ciudadanos. Sabéis que esta semana para los arquitectos es una semana importante porque celebramos la Semana de la Arquitectura. El colegio oficial con los 3 colegios territoriales ha organizado una serie de actos que realmente no damos abasto de tanto evento y tanto acto. Pero sí que es verdad que para nosotros aquí en el Colegio de Valencia era especialmente importante, dado que es el año de la capitalidad verde de Valencia, pues pensamos, ¿por qué no traer una figura importante que además todos conocemos y que todos queremos los diseños que ha hecho para el Parque Central? Y pensamos que era una oportunidad para que viniera a contarnos, ha podido encajar dentro de su complicada agenda el venir aquí a Valencia y nosotros estamos encantados. La verdad es que le damos las gracias por estar aquí a Kathryn Gustafson. Su conferencia va a tratar, bueno, en primer lugar, gracias a los asistentes. Soy un desastre para los temas de protocolo, por lo tanto, yo a todos los representantes de entidades de la ciudad les agradezco que estén aquí acompañándonos a nosotros y a Kathryn, por supuesto. Bueno, como decía, su conferencia va a tratar sobre los temas que realmente controla, que son el paisaje, el diseño de paisaje de las ciudades y de sus conexiones. No quiero decir mucho más porque nos lo va a contar ella mucho mejor que yo, seguro. Y después, cuando termine su conferencia, tendremos además una mesa redonda con arquitectos que están interviniendo en otros espacios de la ciudad, también importantes destacar dentro de este año de Capitalidad Verde. Así que no me extiendo mucho más. Daros las gracias a todos por estar aquí y a Kathryn, por supuesto, por venir. Cuando quieras, el espacio es tuyo.
Okay, so I don't have to do anything? Okay, good. Hi. I feel like I'm at a picnic. You know, it's like everything's outside. It's absolutely lovely. So I have an hour for you, an hour and 15 minutes. If you get bored, put up your hands and I'll stop. So I've put this into different categories because this is an architectural school, and I've put together this lecture because you are architects. And I think that a lot of people don't understand how landscape architecture is designed and how it is done, because we're not doing a building, we're doing an environment. It's completely a different way of designing. So I'm going to try to show you how we design and how I design and why I design. I will start after an introduction with València. Many of you may know Parque Central as a project, but I'm bringing you back to competition boards so I can show you what the logic was, why we designed it the way we designed it. So I think it's very important to understand the complexity for us of what a landscape does. So I am now going to try to change where I'm from. I'm from Yakima, Washington. This is the view of a high plateau desert. It's actually quite a bit like València. There's no water. So all the water is brought in from the mountains. And when you add irrigation, this is what happens. And we call it, it's like Campbell's soup, just add water. And so when you do, you can grow vineyards, you can grow everything. You see Mount Adams in the background where all the water is coming from. Army Corps of Engineers, 1935, created a whole network of water into the Yakima Valley, and it is the biggest producer of apple and wine in the United States. And that's where I was raised, but everything is channelized. Water is precious. And so you can see the border of irrigated, non-irrigated, the bright green and the dark green. So it, when I came here, I felt very comfortable in València, and this is what the valley looks like when we have irrigation. So it's a big difference. Also, I went to school in Versailles, at the École Nationale Supérieure de Paysage. This is the 1,000 steps. It's like having a mountain in front of you. All you want to do is get to the top to see what's over there. So architecture and landscape can be like a mountain. It can be something that tells you, come up and see me. Come and try to call me. Try to find out why I'm there. It also, Noguchi was a very big influence on me. And I do a lot of sculpture of the land. And this is his park for New York City. Also, you may not know Robert Smithson, Dennis Oppenheimer, excuse me. This is called Parallel Stress. He is an American situation artist who has died. Amazing man, amazing work. And this is one of my favorite pieces for him that we all need. It's called Service Station for Ideas. So when you're out of ideas, you just pull up your brain beside the service station, you plug it in, and you regenerate yourself with new ideas. Then the famous Igor Mitraj, who was a man who taught me how to sculpt in Paris. I was a very lucky person. So here, this is based on mixing. We all mix, we all work together as different people. And so if you do art, you can do environment. Is it humanity? Is it ecology? There aren't disciplines that are like this. You're always cross-disciplining. And to understand when you're looking at a site, what cross-discipline is going to help you the best, and how do you work with those disciplines? And it's extremely important. Then, because we create for public spaces, public desire and humanity is like number one. Who is your public? Who are you building for? Who is going to be living there? What is their humanity? What is the ecology? When you look at València, what's the ecology of here? How does it work? How do connections within the city work? How do you connect things together? And there is something about aesthetics. So in the end, we design beauty. And so there's a desire, and we all have our personal aesthetics about what looks good together with what. And you have to be true to that and not start taking a little bit of that person, a little bit of this person, clumping them together and hope it turns out. You know, so I think the integrity of your composition is really important. And having your aesthetic goals, very important. Aesthetic goals are linked to budget, they're linked to population, they're linked to a lot of things. But you have to have your goals. So we'll start with humanity. So I'll be showing València. Also the National Museum of African American History and Culture in Washington, D.C. And Taikoo, Hong Kong, that I'm just finishing, that I'll be opening in 2 weeks. Been working on 10 years. So humanity. It's really a perception of space. Somebody born in València does not perceive space the same way a person born in Osaka. And understanding who you're designing for is extremely important. I just opened my park in Osaka 2 weeks ago. It's fantastic. It has nothing of the same scale that I would put in València. So it's really important. And I think for me, this understanding the scale of how people live a space, I call this the scale of our living. We have foreground, what we're doing every day with our friends. That's up in the front. Then we have medium ground, which is this area where we live. And then we have far ground, that's where we end up when we die. And I think the scale of our lives are made up of those three things: when we're born and when we die, where we live now, and what's our everyday. And so all of those are things that we end up designing for. I also depend a lot on understanding art. This is two of my favorite pieces. It's a Matisse. What you see here is anticipation. So you see, just by light, you know there's a river below. You're up high. You're seeing through trees. You're seeing something's curving. You see light at the tunnel. All that anticipation is something you should be doing in your design. Anticipating. You see it done in Parc Central everywhere. Anticipate, try to draw people through, draw them to the next piece. This is also Matisse. What I love about it, you absolutely know there's a cliff at the end. Look at that sky, right? That sky there says there's nothing behind. So it's a little bit like skiing. If you see the top of that hill and you see darkness beyond and no tree, it's a cliff, okay? So the same thing happens in landscape, is creating that anticipation. I know if I turn that corner here, I'm going to be on a viewpoint, a balcony over something extraordinary. So I want to go. So creating those desire lines are extremely important. This is another one. I really love what is the true picturesque. This is Kent, 1730 and 70. This is called creating the points of desire. So what creates a point of desire, I want to see it, right? I want to go to that piece. I want to go see that. Guess what? There's no pathway. So I go around. And by going around, I discover things. I discover that. So by creating that one point of desire, I create a whole parcours of other interest points that unroll in front of people as they move. So those are some of your compositional tools, wanting to be at the top of the mountain. This is, very quickly, Jacques Asgar. This is actually where I stood the day I decided to become a landscape architect, because I could see I could do landscape for the public and I could do landscape as an art form. And he did these amazing pieces in the early 70s, land movement like we've never seen before. It's still there. It's still beautiful. Kids love it. And so he was actually my mentor. I talked him into being my mentor. Yeah, it took me a while, but he had no choice. So here we are, Parque Central. What a mess. When we got here, oh my God. But this happens everywhere in Europe, and it's always the same problem. We build right here, the central station. We have the corridor there, center of town. We got all the rails going, and then all of a sudden town builds around it and no neighborhood connections. Those neighborhoods never had a connection, okay? Never. But now they want one, and they should. And you have this big thing in the center. Everywhere, all over the world, we're putting rails under the ground. So we're doing it in Osaka. They happen to do it in 6.5 years. So, little lesson learned. You guys are late. You need to put a little public pressure out there, and development that can help pay for it. So it's a double-sided. So when we first saw this, trying to understand where we were, I talked today when we're walking on the site. This is my first night in València, where I put my head out and the melees were all this yellow and this golden light. And I said, oh my God, where have I gone to heaven? And I just fell in love with the city and said, this park has to be about where I am. It has to be about this. There's water, there's green, there's light, it's warm. Then you have this abundance of water that's coming down the River Tura, and then the Albufera, this huge, aquifer of water. I think it's Adrian Geis that first said, València, you've got water, you got sun, you got soil, what else you want? And so it's really a very magical place to live and work. And the history of the channelization of water is a history I grew up with. And it's also very specific to you. And also there's the fact that the bowls are, I'm going to go back one if I can. The fact that there's the Albufera absorbs that water and it filters it through the sands, which is amazing. And that feeds the aquifers. And so you have this perpetual system. And then I went to, after seeing the magical night, the next day I went to the museum, and this is one of the bowls that I saw. And it was clear that this whole place is about food, and it's about serving food and being about food. And so, and then everybody's so thin in València, it's really interesting. that you must get a lot of exercise. But then the site itself is a bowl. So if you look at the levels all the way around here, they're higher. And this existing building here, which is in the center, which is part of the Huerta originally, is at a low point. So this is the concept of saying, okay, this is a place of bowls, whether it's the Eula bowls or the food bowls. And how do we make the bowls part of the environment and part of the program? And this is, I usually do better looking sculpture than this, but we didn't have time to do a lot right in the beginning. So it was the first kind of going, okay, what are we trying to do? And one is, when you have a site like this, you do not want to see through it. You want to see into it. One of the things we learned from the Villette, for all the architects who know the Villette, and Bernard Tschumi, I worked on it with him. A lot of us who know each other now worked on it. You walk on Porte Pontin, you see the Grande Halle, you see the Museum of Science at the end. People don't go past the Grande Halle because they think they've already seen it, because it's flat. There is no anticipation. There's nothing that says you only see a bit of this, right? And so trying to get people to go in and experience things, a lot has to do with how we did design this park. So as you enter north and south, you don't see straight through. You come in, you never see straight through. And then there are a series of bowls that are done. So this is the first drawing. We worked a lot on the diagrams to explain the concept. And this is facing north-south and how everything comes into the center. But you'll see as you move in, you see something else. You're constantly, if I come here, all of a sudden I'm going to see this, or I'll see that, or I'm here and then I see this. And so you're discovering things and then you radiate back out and radiate back in. And that's how the composition of the whole piece works. Then the bowls come, and the bowls are programmatically, but here we see the Eulas, and the Eulas are those big sand dunes where all that water gets filtered, gets cleaned, and returned to the aquifer. So then there's that thing about discovery. I was just talking from the north. You can see here, this is a stormwater basin recycling for all the water that sends it back into the system, but also has native plants, native vegetation. It is not treated water. Then as you come down, you all of a sudden discover this, or you discover that, or you discover this. But going up, this is all what I call cultural water. You play in it, you walk in it. That's what you see built today, is the cultural water. So on the side of the natural water, it's all the native vegetation that's existing around, recreating habitat, biodiversity. One part of the park is much more natural and one's much more cultural. And so you'll see that as it develops, this cultural area here is existing. And so this whole area is what you see today is much more cultural. This one is much more natural. And so I really want to build it. And so part of that is also having flexible spaces for events, having this big, beautiful historical building, having places to go outside, have events, have the fountains, turn them off, have fairs, making it economically viable. So a lot of those buildings are there to have investments done in them, to have fairs, to have activity. It's really expensive maintaining a park. And so you have to generate ways of maintaining that park. And so this is basically the final plan, but what this talks about is every time you walk into this park, you walk in with water. Every entrance today is with water, and every entrance in the future will be with water, because that is a symbol of València itself. We still have the second half to build. Help me build it. keep the pressure up. We need this natural meadow amphitheater. It's great for biodiversity. It's great for events, big events. So there is also all the woodlands around it. It's all the native Quercus rubra, different types of pines that exist. And how do you do it? Land movement. So you who were on the visit today saw the first part of our land movement, which are these two walls here that create the huerta here, the romantic valley, and the children's bowl here. In the future, they will create, which is a universal accessible part of a garden that is based on accessibility for people that have inabilities, and also the enormous amphitheater. And then this is a urban ecology center that teaches people how to have better biodiversity, better permeability in the city itself. So there's the model that shows the different things, but all these look really small to you. But when you get out there and walk it, they're not small. It's a big place. And that scale is what makes people feel like, no, it's a landscape. It's not a toy, okay? It's something muscular. It's really strong. Everything you build outside has to be built really solid, really strong, or it won't last. And then people lose heart, and then they stop caring. So it's really important to build it very, very strong, very robust. And then this is the program that most of you know. This is historical, with the restoration of historical buildings, the huerta, romantic valley between these two huge walls, the children's playground, everything in the huerta, the floral that is grown here. And then the other sites we just spoke about earlier, big plaza up by the train station, another plaza here. There should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 towers built. Those towers are part of development. They help pay for things. Hopefully they will come along, and there'll be good architects that do them. So here it is in CGI, and this is what is built today. And so you can see the two walls here. We're missing a couple buildings here. We need them. We got another building spot coming in over here. So trying to figure out, how do we make this grow to make the city grow in a positive way? That's a real photo of the huerta. This was designed, we moved the buildings that were part of the train station into here. We're hoping to have a restaurant in here that will use the food from the huerta. This is the first water basin and your entry with water here. So these, I'll just flip through these. You can all walk downstairs and go see it. I do want to point out the reason those light poles are there is so the skateboarders do not do that edge. That's the only edge that doesn't get touched. I wish I'd put them all the way around because they're hurting my stone right now. This is the entry piece with the water filtering through. This is when it was first planted. You go today, it's much bigger. The trees have, in 8 years, they're huge. I love it. Everything grows fast here. This is when it was first built huerta. My beautiful wall. I've been dreaming of doing a freestanding wall where the rain comes through it and goes all the way down. So everything's interconnected through it. So it's not individual pots. And so you can see and this changes all through the season. That's a romantic valley. Right now it's much bigger, much prettier. I've never been a kind of girl that wears pink, but I planted all pink here. It's for the first time, it just felt like València. There was so much romanticism, felt like, love was in the air. So here it is. And I really like it. It's quite beautiful. And then the wall, when it was first built, and the children's area, we dedicated close to 40% of the first phase just to children. And so that's the Huerta wall this spring. So it changes all the time. But also places of shade, places where families can be, picnic, where kids can play. There's a lot of kids areas. And then this huge pergola that connects through the park that keeps you in the shade so you're not getting too hot like I always get. And then over the seasons, the different things that grow in this area that are very much part of that vegetation and that feel, and they change during the spring. So it's a garden right now that I love. It needs some extra little maintenance. But, you know, it looks pretty good for having gotten through COVID all by itself somehow, and with a lot of good help. And with time, I'm sure it will last over the time. So last thing, water is magic. This water has a lot of different moods. And you see it with jets a lot, but it's actually quite good when they're not jets and it's just silently moving over this space like this and creating different patterns. And so need to work with how we program the jets and how we work with them. They can be raunchous like Las Vegas, or they can be very quiet, and they can always be fun. And always a good conversation. Now, what's the other part we haven't built? And this is one of the things that I really hope that we'll be able to build in Valencia. This was conceived over 10 years ago. Since then, we've learned a lot more about making a site greener, making it more environmental impact, making it more recycling water. Just finished a first part of my Eiffel Tower site. It's very much the same problem in that it's not so much the shape of things, it's the systems you use. How do you collect water? How do you filter water? What materials do you use? How much compaction? How much impermeabilization do you use? How much shade do you create? So changing that ratio from very hard Mediterranean cities to very sponge absorbing Mediterranean cities is one of the keys. Hopefully we'll work on this and make it greener, because I think it can be greener. But one of the things, the way this works, that from the very beginning is we could not build, we only had these many blocks, right? And so there are schools in these different areas, but more importantly, we created these ELOs in here that kids never see a car, okay? And kids never see a car here. And every building here, the parents can see the playground on the ground. So there's directly eyes on every single space. There is no space without eyes on. And so I think that is part of the safety for kids, is really understanding what they're living. And so and then there are schools, there's dance, and then there are different places where we can create different programs. Are they cultural programs? Are they music programs? Are they urban garden programs that are more about the community coming together within their space? And you'll see that each one of these has one of those. And again, I want to take out the traffic in this so that all these kids never see a car, and try to find a way where we balance it with functionality. And be careful, you know, we can't just make everything green. We've got to get ambulances in, fire trucks in, garbage trucks in. We've got to get, I'm not sure we need your personal cars personally, but we have to have everything else that makes the city function. And so having rapid transit, having all that, it's really important to making a city work. And we simply can't live without it. So unless you're going to invent a massive amount of drones that put out every fire, maybe that'll happen in 25 years. But right now we have to deal with the services we have and the people we have that do them. So I know that's a little bit boring, but it's true. So this is done 10 years ago. One of the things I love about València is these huge boulevards of center spaces. Would like to use them more culturally, make them more attractive, find ways that they get inhabited and used more. Again, this section is 10 years old. Would like to take out more of this traffic, build in more green, make them more sustainable. So here's some of those spaces that can change program-wise, but again, you stay within here and you do not have the contact with vehicles on the outside and thus danger. And same thing here, they're all based on the same system. So hopefully I'll be back one day and finish the rest of the project to create the neighborhood to the south. And somebody said, well, who's doing the buildings? And these are a lot of buildings here that have to be built. And they said, oh, the same architect? And I said, absolutely not. You want a different architect for every building. You want diversity. You want something that is different talents that come together to make your city. Your city does not have the same architect doing the same building every place anywhere. So that is something you as architects need to fight for, is that you keep that diversity and doesn't become this massive super block of the same architecture that looks like the same thing, and that everybody looks at their building, doesn't know who in the hell where they live or where their identity is. And so I'm counting on you on fighting that fight. Also, the center alley, water again, water everywhere is part of your culture. And making sure we get really great planting in there, biodiversity, also just flowers, things that are just part of our lives that make us happy. So this is Hong Kong, and it's the first time I'd worked in Hong Kong, and wow, what a trip. You know, I'm working on the Rock, and it's I'm working with a company called Swires, and they just own a little bit of land, like all of it. And so this is their territory, and these are just a few of their buildings. And everything's high rise, but this fabulous thing is on the Rock is all natural vegetation. And so it's all protected. So you can stay in a hotel and walk out, and with 5 minutes, you're hiking in a forest in Hong Kong. It's one of the healthiest cities I've ever lived in, and I've spent 10 years there now, and absolutely adore it. So at the time I started, remember all the different manifestations were happening there, where they're going, well, the Chinese are coming, they're going to transition us, you know, and they're going to, and other people are saying, well, they're going to take away our tradition. But then, you know, what is tradition and what is transition? And a lot of people said there's no transparency. So this is about that period of saying you're going to transition, okay? There's no way around it. But can you keep some tradition, but can you also keep transparency as you did it? So looking at different parts of China, different parts of their landscape, and it was really interesting to see that, you know, obviously in paintings, the water was all curved and natural, and then the buildings were all straight, and then things were lifted up on stone over water. And then you have this sort of, even in the paintings, this mystic mist that comes in and mixes with things. And then, you know, I love this one where the monk is in his place in the middle of the mountain doing his meditation. So you're in the middle of these sky rises, but you still have that quiet moment. So how does that part of that culture, how do you integrate it into your concept? So I don't want to take up too much time, but basically, and rain, and typhoons. and wind and rain. So wanted to do a piece where we look through a sheet of rain, basically, into a new future. So that's your transparency, a veil of water, and through it, there is a bright light here that you see through, and that's your future. So there's this walkway up above where you can see into the piece and still be separate from the piece, but part of the piece. So, and you'll see the site, it's the size of a football field. In Hong Kong, that's unheard of for a landscape. You'll build a football field of landscape. The way the site is made, one corner is 5 meters higher than the other 3 corners. So it has this tilted piece, which is this here. And then it has this walkway done by Hugh Doughton that goes all the way around it. So this becomes a podium of that transparency that you move through into this landscape. And this is one of my first sketches of it, of having these lines of water you move through. And if you look at this drawing here, this is based on what my client did for a living, and that is shipping sugar. And that's what paid for all this. And so you can see where the boats were coming in, and this is my model of the piece of the landscape. Now, these are water featured. This one's 76 meters long. This is the oval water feature. There's another one down here. But they're all lines and veils. So every time you move through one, you're moving through a veil through transparency. And the one place the sun hits every day, all season, is right here. So that's your bright light right in the middle. So these are some of the sections. Everything's built on a 5-story garage underneath it. What they did is they took down 3 buildings and put up 2 sky rises on either end to pay for it, and liberated all the ground around it. So here's the model, just to show you some of the high point I was talking about is up at this corner, and you can see how it steps down. One high rise is here, the other high rise is here. We actually did the interiors of that high rise, because in my office, my partner, Neil Porter, is an architect also. These are some of the drawings. We're subtropical in climate type. And then we started working how the water works. And this is something a lot of you probably already know. We do a lot of stone carving. We do a lot of working with water. So this is the long pool, and it has water moving down it. And then we started modeling it to see how are you going to actually do it. So I think it's good for an architecture school to see that we don't just like pop up with these things. They take months and months and months to do in the computers, in models, test them. And so I just wanted to show the process really quickly. So you can see how we go from models in here, then they're cut in polystyrofoam, and then they're tested for how water movement is done. It's one of the cheapest ways to do it, to test them, is do the polystyrofoam. We started experimenting with that about 7 years ago. It really helps. And the polystyrofoam works just like stone, and the CNC machines can cut them in like 3 hours, not 5 days or something. And then you move to stone, and it's the magic of the stone, the water through it changes things. So that's the long pool and you can see above it, the Hugh Doughton's bridge that connects first floors. As they walk along, they see along this pool. This is another waterfall, another area between 2 basins. This basin here flows into this one here, and this one flows into recycle of the whole system. So these are some of the patterns, looking at how do you catch water, move water, and again, testing it for everything is tested. Do not try to carve a piece and not test it for water, because it probably might not work. I've seen too many not work. And then trying to figure out what is the best stone, what is the best texture. People decide to walk on it so they don't slip. There's a lot of different things you have to be careful of if you're going to start doing water and stone. But these are some of the CGIs. I have new images, but I actually will be there to take final images in 3 weeks. The other thing we did, they're feng shui forests. And the feng shui forests are pieces of forest by villages that the villagers take care of to protect their village. We couldn't find the trees anymore. So we went to a local university and seed, what do you call it, where they do experimentation with horticulture and seeds. And they actually gave us the seeds, and we started a nursery and we grew our own trees. And these are all feng shui trees that we cannot buy in a nursery. But we were able to grow half the trees that we planted ourselves, which is really fun. And this is Taiku Gardens, which is another part of it that I didn't quite explain. It's also working on what happens when the water's on, what happens when the water's off, seating everywhere for lunchtime, seating that's integrated in the shade, and also a water piece that you can see when the jets are on, it's one mood, and then you see this sculptural piece here. When the jets are off, it's just this rolling of water that moves through a very sculptural piece. And that's Hong Kong. American Museum, African American History and Culture. This is another thing that, this is one city block and it took 9 years. One building. Osaka, 15 high rises, 6 years. Okay, so there's something about the administration that in some cities is a little bit onerous, and Washington, D.C. is one of them, and we're on the mall, and so it's really complicated. Plus, it's a museum of African American history and culture, sensitive. Obama was president when we started. He was no longer president when we finished, but he did come to the opening, which was nice. Maybe, no, he wasn't president anymore. So this is David Adjaye, who designed this piece with Max Bond. Max Bond is an African-American architect that unfortunately died in the process of this building. Wonderful man, great, great architect. And it's trying to fit in, there's 5 stories underground. So 2/3 of the building is actually in the ground to get that much program in. That's probably why it took so long to build. Plus, we're in a floodplain. So this is Constitution Avenue right here. Excuse me, you'll see it here. So this is where we are, kind of sensitive. White House is here, Capitol is here, Washington Monument. I mean, it's kind of sensitive. And that's why it took so long. But it's also that this whole piece floods in here. So there's floodgates over here. We had to make sure we wouldn't flood the basements of this museum. And also you have eyes on in Washington, D.C., because you have all this historical landscape. And so worked really hard to fit in with the Washington Monument, to fit in with the Oval Gardens of the White House, to fit in with the mall. And one of the things that happened here is the beauty of the mall, if you don't know it, at the Washington Monument, all the traffic dips down. So you never see a bus go in front of the Washington Monument. So we worked with that land movement to really understand how the mall continues on, and that how do we integrate ourselves in. You've got a big grade change from here to Constitution. Most of these museums have a whole floor inside of them. So you have one entry at Constitution and another entry at the mall. And so how do you do that with a contemporary building that wanted to have one floor as the entry floor from one end to the other. So working with the architects, working with the site, over time we were able to really find a very simple landscape that would just support all the different parts of it. And obviously we're in Washington, D.C. We have terrace walls everywhere. You know, they have to go like 2 meters into the ground. They have to be so many thickness, so much steel in them. And then you want to make them disappear, right? So like they didn't exist. And that's kind of an interesting challenge, but we did it. So you can see from in the beginning, I wanted everybody to cross water because every African-American in America crossed water as a slave. And so to walk into this museum symbolically, I thought we need to cross water. We need to cross the water they crossed. And so you here, I did my stormwater management was a water piece that you crossed over. And here's a fountain you'll see you crossed over to enter through the building. And this entire floor is one level. And so it's we flood up to here. So this is my truck access underground deliveries here. We're above the flood line. And so siting a building is always an interesting endeavor. And this shows how we worked with the people movement that works through the site without going to the museum, but are still part of the Washington Monument and the mall, to make sure we're integrated into that entire site. So this is my model next to a very simple plan that shows the different elements I just told you about. So this is the water feature on the north, and the sun, excuse me, it's on the south. So you can see the sun in the winter is here to keep you warm, and in the summer is here. David wanted to have this very large balcony piece, which actually really protected our entry from the southern sun. And it gets hot in DC. It gets really hot. And I had my water feature here that you cross over. And so you can see this water feature there. Again, we're up here and we're taking part of that grade that's going down to Constitution and pull people in by still creating the security walls on the outside edge so you don't see them. And so it's a real balance of visualization of where people are and what they see to not feel like they're in, you know, some sort of fortress. So this is my concept for the water, and it's about the African Americans. There's so much turbulence in their lives. You know, it's just, if you're an American, you're American, you know there's a problem. But on the other side, the African American community is one of the strongest communities I know, and they're fabulous. You look at Max Bond, you look at some of the really wonderful people. So I have a water feature that is full of turbulence and full of drop dead calm, right? Just, I'm strong, I'm black, okay? I'm not moving. And so those two things are what is America. And trying to represent that, I created this piece that the two waters never touch. And so one is turbulence and one's flat, and they never touch. And there's a slice between the two of them. And so that you'll see, and there is this long bench in front of it where you can sit. And in the turbulent area, I worked on this thing called murmurs. The murmurs, you know, in birds, the flocks of birds that do this, like this. Have you ever watched how they are? Their wings are almost touching all the time. And it's one of the most amazing things how they move. The African American community is like that. They are always in touch. You know, they may move and do things, but the support system within it is really interesting. And so the songs and the music and this just joyness of them is something that I wanted represented in the turbulence. So this is my murmurs, and each one of those are turbulence in the water. And then there are some great African-American writers, and so there's written statements in bronze under the turbulence because they wrote about the turbulence. And so this is the drawing, and then this is what it looks like. Just that one slice between the two. You know, it looks simple, but to get it that far, to have that much meaning, I think is really important for me. And this is what it's like today. Everything's handicap accessible, of course. And it's also, it reflects the Washington Monument in it. You are sitting there in front of the African American with the Washington Monument, kind of symbolic. Very, very strong place for people, and a place where people can sit and be at ease. And that is one last thing that happened. I had what we call value engineering because David's facade went over price. And so because his facade went over price and was such a beautiful building, they said, okay, Kathryn, cut out a water feature. So remember that water feature down there? They said, get rid of it. I said, okay, that water feature was my security board, because that meant that a truck, terrorist truck, would go into it. It was deeper down in it, and it would block them. And I said, okay, well, you don't want it. I'll just put up a wall there and put your museum name on it. The Arts Council came back and said, no concept, not good enough. Go back to drawing board. And I called David and I said, I want to do this really big black wall. He said, you got all the power. The Art Council refused it. They got to have something. So I proposed my black wall. And the black wall is a huge muscular wall. And it doesn't pretend to be anything else but an immense black wall. And it is solid granite, 5 meters wide, 200 meters long. And it's crafted completely beautiful. It's like a beautiful shoulder. It's rounded, it's warm, it's absolutely fantastically beautiful. What happened, I could have never guessed. These are where the handicap access is, so you can get through. It's become the party place of Washington, D.C., because your back's to the sun, you're sitting on a warm granite, and all the food trucks are parked in front. And it's just, everybody uses it all the time. I would have never guessed it. But if you think about it, it does make sense. Look at it. It's always like this.
And in winter?
Huh?
In winter?
Yeah, because it's warm. Because you got the sun, the black stone. It's black, you know. It's African American history building. It's black. And there's then the fact that we've discovered all sorts of things, like blue is the color of the dwellings that protected the thresholds. So we planted for African American Month in February 360,000 blue crocuses that flower only that month. So it's full of surprises, but it's a beautiful site. And David did a beautiful job on the building. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's very sober. Everything's very sober. It's very simple. I think the New York Times critic said of my work is the most understated I've ever seen. For me, that's a success. Yeah. So I'm not sure how much more time I have. Do I still have time? Yeah, okay. Yeah. I probably put too much in, but this is art. For you guys, okay, we're all drawing on flat, and then we're drawing something that goes up, or I'm drawing something up that goes flat. And so the perception of space and the perception of what we draw and how you teach it is really important. And so I use art to teach people about landscape, to say, how do you look at what you're drawing, what's your composition? So if you take a Kandinsky, okay, put it on the table, put your head on the table, what does it do? It all of a sudden becomes mountains and lakes. That is simply the same drawing on the table. It's not bent or anything else. Same thing. You move it in the other direction, you have a couple of ridges, you have a couple of waters, you have something else. So understanding what you're drawing and how you're turning it and how you're perceiving it is really important. This is Joseph Barres. I love this because, and I use it in landscape a lot to teach people, you think you're drawing two circles. You are not drawing two circles. You are drawing something else that happens in the landscape. And if I look at it the two circles are the same, right? If I go back, there was a little one and a big one. Now there's only two. Oh, now there's a teeny one and one. It all depends on your perception and how you put that perception. Or there's no circle at all, but it's a loop. So trying to understand what you're actually drawing. And I think a lot of people get lost in their computers and don't really understand scale. If I can say anything to you, get in virtual reality. It is good. It really helps you understand scale. Don't try to walk around with it, okay? You'll fall down. But I love virtual reality. It's the first time I've had a really good tool to put on my head and go, hey guys, this thing's too tall, okay? It's dominating me. It shouldn't be dominating me. Or I'm going to trip here, or this is that, or that doesn't work, you know, but it's one of the few computerized tools that I'd really advise everybody to use. Princess Diana Memorial, I'm not sure I need to show it very much because probably everybody knows it, but it was quite a game. This is the first CNC cutting that was done on a large scale. We opened it in 2004. We designed and built it in 1 year, and we had never worked on a computer in our life before. So it was me and Neil Porter working on a model in my studio and how you perceive it, then going to clay and then scanning the clay into 3D, and then starting to learn about how to do 3D textures. And this is where we learned everything. And how we all know how to do it, but I can tell you in 2004, we were clueless, but we knew we could do it. I just was convinced because I'd seen the guys work on Sakakura in Barcelona, and they're doing the restoration of that end piece. They had modeled that entire end piece in 3D, and then they were using different small machines to start cutting that. So I knew there was a way to do it, but we just had to blow it up in scale. And so we plunged, and this is the first cutting. When we first started it, this machine would break a head pretty much often. Now we've learned more how to change heads, how to use one head to do one thing and then use it again. There's new machines that actually go in and they pull a head out of a drawer and change its own head so you can do another part of the job. So the machines have really changed today. But at this time, when we had a head broken, the Germans were taking, I think, something like 4 weeks to replace a head, and Seoul was taking 48 hours to replace a head. So Seoul made all our heads. And this is what we were able to carve with them. And there's a lot of stories about what it's about Diana, about her adventures, her love of fabric, her movement, her excitement about things, champagne in her life. This is air that's blown through by Venturi Forest. It's 85 meters long. All the water is oxygenated. It goes into the lakes to eliminate algae bloom in Hyde Park. So it's part of the whole environmental cycle of the water itself. It's not treated. It's used really for oxygenating lakes. But kids love it. This is called rock and roll. She had a little rock and roll in her life, to say the least. And I'll go here to Art Gallery in New South Wales, working with Sana. Sana did this beautiful new extension And this is their plaza. I did the master plan here, helped them with it. I've known the director for a while, and said to him, this is the old historical museum. I said, Michael, you can't have a new pretty sister and have the old sister look dilapidated, and you've got to do something to your facade. And so he said, okay, what? And I said, well, why don't we take away the cars? See if I can find a, well, I guess I don't have this used to be a parking lot, all of this in here. All of this was a parking lot. This is historical staircase. There used to be no way to get here for universal access. There were steps. So created a large plaza with 2 pools of water. And one of the things about water in Australia, and this is this beautiful portico facade. I mean, it's so noble. It's so beautiful. And that it just was dilapidated, all the front of it, not the building itself. And this is what it looked like originally. And these are the curves of those walls. If I go back, you can see how people used to sit on these walls. You see this curve? And you can see how it used to be here. And you can see the line, historic line, where it was before. So we did a lot of historical research, and I said, okay, let's put out these 2 reflecting pools to reflect the facade in a very neoclassic, very classic as a move, black, you know, streamline. And I don't know if this is too small to see, but the land moves down. So that means this, and water's flat, right? It's got to be horizontal or it's moving. And so this side is only 40 centimeters and this side's 70, and then it's 40, then it's 70. So you have a relationship to the object that's constantly changing across the site. And here is the first model of it, of how it reflects the porticos in it. And it's very sober, very nice. Then this is a CGI. And one of the things about Australia, it has droughts. And so when you have drought, you can't have a bunch of water because it's just not, environmentally responsible. So they're saying to me, okay, what's going to happen when we empty them out? And I said, well, we've got to turn them into a piece of sculpture because they have to look good, empty. And they also can't have skateboarders on them, right? So this is what they look like today. Mirror, black granite, perfectly engineered. And really, everybody loves it. Notice all the statues are black, the writing on the walls black, it's all those things to make this all fit. This is my drawing of what to do when it's empty. And it's basically triangulation like an argyle. So argyles and triangulations are in primitive art and in British art, okay? Or British history, the argyle, whether it's up north, they're in both. And both of these people live in Australia, okay? So it seemed like the perfect marriage of the two to come together, but then form them like a sculpture so skateboarders can skate on them. And this is showing how the water would run over and around them. And these are my sketches. And then this is the 3D model of it. It's all solid black granite. And when I first got there, they were just finishing it. And I saw the guy and said, you got to clean that thing. It's got to be perfect mirror. And so he came back later. No, it's not, I mean, clean it. So it was, construction sites and all that stuff. He did. And this is what it looks like when it's empty. And it's like a kaleidoscope of mirror of the environment and of everything above it. And it's absolutely fantastic. So it's an art piece, but it's a surprise, and it's an entry piece, and it changes from season. So, but you have to clean it. I was so happy when I saw it. I wasn't sure how it would actually work, and so I think I'm going to skip these two pieces, Morbras and Pen Mirabeau in Marseille. Just really quickly, stormwater management, we've been doing it as my first project in 1983. So people think that they've invented stormwater management. No, we've been doing it a while. Restoring damaged water systems where we collect water from freeways. This is 1993. Big infrastructure jobs, love working on them. This is the site the way it was, and then did a model, how you collect the water, how you hold the water, where do you retain it and return it. And so the one thing you just need to know is this piece here is a big water retention and another one here. And these are columns of concrete where you can see the mark of water, how full it has been. So you understand how much impermeabilization that freeway has done. And this is the site today. Those walls are 12 meters tall, but that's what holds up that volume of water. I really like doing this big stuff. Look at the truck. It's just a little truck, right? But those are the concrete basins. The top is horizontal, the bottom is not. And so you can see where the water line is. That was the last stormwater event, how much water came into that basin. Can you see those lines? Here, yeah. And it's all native plants in there in prairie. Eiffel Tower, I'm not sure I should do the whole thing because it will probably take 15 minutes and it's 7:30. Do I do it anyway? Yeah? No? Tired?
Pastor, no, not tired.
Okay. So Eiffel Tower, in 2019, we won the competition for 50 hectares in Paris. Just a little project, right? Just it was really hard. It's still hard, and we're still working on it. And it's still going to be hard till I retire and disappear because it's taking so long. But the thing, Paris really wanted to work with climate change. They really wanted it to be a greener site. It's a historical site, okay? It's not something you can just jump in there and do whatever you want. You have the Arquitecta of France, you've got the site, you've got so many different people just like this. You can't move an inch without having to convince half the world. So it was a huge challenge. The biggest problem with this site is that it is all hard space. I mean, look at all the asphalt, all of this, asphalt everywhere. And it's hot as hell. And there are 10 million people a year, okay? And those 10 million are compacting everything. And all the trees' roots are dying. Things are just broken everywhere. You can see this. Can you believe this? Palais Chaillot, and it has pink asphalt in front of it. You got to be kidding. It's like, so it took us a year to win the competition, 4 submittals. That's what it looked like. And it's completely cars everywhere, hot surfaces, ugly, people crowded on sidewalks. Then when they win, the World Cup, then everybody's on all the lawns and totally trash all the lawns in Champ Mouse. And then it looks like this. And it's just not designed for the use it is today. You have to redesign it. You have to design it in a green way that allows people to sit, move, redo all the surfaces, redo all the drainage. Do what I talked about earlier. You have to change the systems. One of the things is getting people to stay on a certain pathway and not another one, right? It's like simple, right? Make the desire line clear that they actually want to stay on it. So there's all sorts of psychological things you can do and physical things you can do. this is what the Fountain of Varsovie, 1937, the last World Exhibition Center. And if you want to understand why it's called Fountain of Varsovie, you can see Russia and the Third Reich fighting over Poland, right? So that is why it's called the Fountain of Varsovie. And this is actually what it looks like. And so it's always been this amazing space, but that fountain still exists today. And that area that we restored, the first phase, you'll see is this one right here. The red asphalt, it's around that. So my idea and my team's idea was called One, that one of the things that happens in this area is this is 16 arrondissement, 7th, the richest people in Paris, okay? This is 15, pretty high income here. All this is medium low income. So if you leave it up to the arrondissements to do something, you're going to get an imbalance. So they're going to say, well, we want this nice stuff over here, but we're not, we can pay for it. And this guy said, I'd like the nice stuff, but I can't pay for it, right? So the first thing is everything's equal, right? Same surfaces, same treatment, same materials, one into the other. It's one site. It's Paris. It's not your arrondissement. It's not your arrondissement. It's for all the people of Paris and all the people who visit Paris. One. And those are all the things in French. Same materials, same, the same management, everything. The other thing that it did is I stopped the cars, the entire site. There are no cars from one end to the other. It's over at 1.4 kilometers without a car. And so it won. And that meant all the cars here on the quay had to go into tunnels that existed, and no cars the whole way. So you're 10 million people can have kids, they can have everyone they want. There's no cars. There's police and public transportation. Not even taxis are allowed. So it's so much safer just by reducing down to that. Then the other thing is really understanding why the Eiffel Tower suffers so much and from all this trampling. And the reason is the site is not dispersed, right? Everybody wants to come to the Eiffel Tower. So you need to disperse the offering, right? And so you need to create things everywhere. So people go everywhere. So they spread out and they don't just go one place. And you still need, you still need to have that central green, right? You saw the length of the green. There's one green that goes one to the other. You have to have all that and then meander with arch. So that's basically the diagram to decentralize everything from being only here. And because that's where all the damage is also, because too many people go to the same place and try to figure out. So also we have historical monuments, Palais Chaillot, the bridge, the Eiffel Tower. This is École Militaire. We're proposing one new water feature here, existing water feature, existing Eiffel Tower, and existing water feature here. We're redoing new plazas here, 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 and here. So you stop using the lawn for an event, okay? You use hard space that's built to take it. So then there's the other thing fascinating is this site is basically made of two different kinds of landscapes. One is what we call the landscape of power, which is Louis XIV. It's Versailles. It's okay. Then the movement of the picturesque came in 1850s, right? Actually goes back to Kent to 1790s, but it's a totally different kind of landscape. This is the only site in the world I know both exist together. And you can see them. There's the central axis is here, and then the picturesque is all the way around here. And it's built that way. And so it's absolutely unique as a landscape. And so we worked really hard on restoring both the central access by creating one lawn, 25 meters wide, the whole length. But it's raised 30 centimeters, so people have a place to sit. And also they don't walk across it because that means they have to walk on top of it. So it's all those kind of things to make it more sustainable. And this is some of the drawings that show it used to be connected, what it used to look like. That used to be the bridge. It's now 3 times as wide. It was widened out during a Universal exhibition. Going back to that, back to that one here, it's really interesting. The Eiffel Tower used to have all 4 feet in landscape, okay? And then when you see it today, it doesn't. So this is the basic plan for that won the competition. So we start at the top at Trocadero, and I'll go through this quickly. But here we close the circle and create an amphitheater here. It used to be the traffic went around here. Last week, it's closed. I was there. It started. We're going to build it, I hope, because it's really beautiful. And when you see it, I can show you a film, and the traffic works fine, and people can go to there. Right now, there's 1 crossing to get to that center circle. We will have 5. And so all of a sudden, you've created a new green space in the center of one of the most dense cities in the world. And then trying to integrate all the different systems, whether it's transportation, whether it's historical, whether it's art, you know, those different pieces. So here you see Trocadero, the new piece, creating all of this here. Then the next piece here is Varsovie. I propose putting in these lines of stone here for people to sit. Historical monument said no. Said, okay, we'll do something else. We did something else that you'll see later. And we restored all of this area here. We have not been able to do this plaza here. We're about to start to do it. And the traffic right now is still going through this plaza, and we hope we get our approval to stop the traffic and go into the tunnel only. And this is what it looks like. And I don't know if you can see the difference, but on the left is your red asphalt, and on the right is brand new poured concrete, exposed aggregate, super fine, the same colors as limestone. It's absolutely beautiful. It's so huge, it's hard to see. Then this is the project that isn't built yet for changing that plaza from that ugliness to something more planted, more green. This is just a CGI of we're putting in a whole new line of trees here to create more shade for this terrace. That's the bridge in the competition. We closed the bridge, and it's closed right now. It's closed since the Olympics, and after the Olympics, we kept it closed. And it's not built yet. It's supposed to look like that with trees on it. And right now, somebody stands in the middle for their selfie with cars going around them. And so having a central green that's safe and aligned with the tower. The mayor loves it. Hopefully we'll get to build it. Then this is what under the Eiffel Tower looks like. And on one side, in Place de Branly, this is the new kiosk, designed a whole new series of kiosks that will be all the same material, all the same colors, all the same consistency. And that's the kiosk you see over there on the right. Then to the Eiffel Tower itself, we took off 2 lanes of traffic here and created gardens all the way here to the main metro station that's there. The Museum of Branly, redid the outside gardens and restored the whole centerpiece here. None of that's built yet. And I don't know if it'll ever be built, but those are the gardens that will be built. The gardens will be built outside on the street. Whether we ever do the gardens or the inside under the Eiffel Tower, we're not sure. They've stopped it for the moment. We wanted to have the Eiffel Tower's feet land and landscape. And this is what it looks like today under the Eiffel Tower. We have no go yet on that. We have been totally stopped on it. I may never see it done in my lifetime. They're going to sit there with their ugly asphalt when they could have a beautifully planted area instead of these. That's the project that I think we really should build still. The center square is a black square of black. So when it's wet, it becomes a mirror and the entire Eiffel Tower is reflected in it. Then you can see the seating areas all around for people, but a very big open space for events. And then this is Chambre House, what I was talking about, raising everything 30 centimeters, lots of seating. This is creating new areas, walkways, a new plaza at the end in front of École Militaire. So you draw people to the very end, a big plaza with water features and really pulling people to use all of the site. I don't know if that'll ever happen. We have reduced the impermeability by 35%. So that, and we didn't change it historically, okay? We made some of the alleys a little bit narrower, but we had experts in movement and people that said, you've got to keep it at this wide or wider, but don't go underneath it. So anytime we could gain green space, we did it. All the systems take all the water now, it goes into the planting. It gets recycled and collected. It's a really beautiful project. Today, that's what it looks like for the first phase. It looked like that before. It looked like that before. And it looks like that today. So I lost all those seatings, but I kept one line of stone, which is this one. This used to be a sidewalk where people can sit the length of this and not on the lawn. So you win little things that are kind of big things. So I really like it. It's very clean. It's very modest. It's very simple. All around the statues so people can access them, take their selfies in front of them and all that. New line of trees, new planting, and you can see all of this is new stabilized sand. This is the new concrete area. And I was telling him his tree wasn't aligned with the one behind it on that one. And then we redid all the lighting. We took the historical light, changed all the guts out of it for LED, but also everything at 10 o'clock goes only light down, no light up. And so I think that's my last slide. Yep. So that's it. One last thing, the Olympics decided to put their main platform on top of this, and it totally destroyed all the concrete and all the lawns. And I'm just praying they're going to keep true to word and repair it. But I was there last week and I thought I would die. It was just,
Thank you very much,
yeah.
Kathryn. It has been amazing. You have an amazing work. We are all truly and deeply moved by your work.
Oh,
thank you very much. Estamos en realidad, muy buenas tardes a todos y mil gracias por manteneros aquí con todos nosotros después de esta maravillosa conferencia de Kathryn Gustafson. Gracias, por supuesto, a Marina Sender, a Carlos Salazar y a todo el estupendo equipo del Colegio Territorial de Arquitectos de Valencia. por supuesto. Estamos en el punto medio de la jornada de esta tarde y vamos a entrar en una parte muy interesante porque vamos a debatir, vamos a disentir y se van a presentar esos proyectos que están dando un punto de inflexión a la ciudad de Valencia. Cómo ha cambiado la ciudad, cómo ha evolucionado en los últimos años y cuál es su futuro inmediato. Para ello, tenemos 3 referentes de primer nivel que dejan huella en la ciudad y que están dando una perspectiva realmente interesante y realmente impactante, no solamente de cara a Valencia, sino de cara al ámbito nacional e internacional. Contamos con Marta García Chico. Por favor, si puedes subir y ocupar ya tu lugar. Es paisajista, es ingeniera agrónoma del grupo Aranea y también forma parte del equipo de redacción del Plano Verde y de Biodiversidad de Valencia. Contamos también con Miguel Rey Aynat. Es arquitecto, es catedrático de la ETSA de Valencia, pertenece al estudio, fundador del estudio BAM 10, de arquitectura y paisaje, por supuesto, y forma parte de la renovación, ya, ¿no?, en breve, de la plaza del Ayuntamiento de Valencia. Por favor, si puedes, Miguel. Y tenemos también a Arturo Sanz Martínez. Te damos la bienvenida a tu lugar en el debate. Es arquitecto urbanista en Gradolí y Sanz y es ganador del concurso, por supuesto fue ganador del concurso del Parque Turia que cambió directamente la ciudad. Nos van a contar muy brevemente, entre 5 y 10, más bien si puede ser un poquito más sintético, minutos cada uno, cuáles son los proyectos y los desafíos que tienen entre manos. Cómo están desarrollando sus proyectos en este momento y qué impacto y qué huella puede dejar a la ciudad de Valencia. Hablamos del paisaje, hablamos de una visión nueva en las ciudades donde la naturaleza cobra un protagonismo muy importante. Hago una breve mención, soy Marisa Santamaría, escribo sobre diseño y arquitectura desde hace 20 años en muchos medios diferentes. Y llevo investigación de tendencias del diseño y de la arquitectura en el Politécnico de Milán, Polidesign, y entre otras en IE University, con alumnos y estudiantes que son arquitectos e interioristas de más de 90 países, por dar un breve perfil. Comenzamos, si te parece, Miguel, con tu exposición.
Sí. Bueno, buenas tardes a todos. En primer lugar, saludar a Kathryn Gustafson. Es un placer estar con ella, es un placer conocerla personalmente y ha sido un gusto ver su exposición. Ha sido siempre un referente para una guía en mis trabajos, tengo que decir, y ha sido ejemplo para mis alumnos en clase. También agradecer al Colegio de Arquitectos la oportunidad de presentar en este foro sobre Ciudad y Naturaleza. Vamos a presentar la propuesta de la plaza del Ayuntamiento que he desarrollado junto con Antonio Gallut, Nacho Fuster y Teresa Santamaría. Es una intervención que esperemos que pronto sea realidad, no puedo decir nada más. Partimos de una condición, de intervenir en una plaza, como ven ustedes ahí, que tiene una forma triangular muy adjetivada. Vimos que habían 2 alternativas en la intervención. Centrarnos en el propio triángulo, como se hizo en la última de las principales intervenciones, en la de Gerlich, o bien expandirse y articular la ciudad, articular la plaza con la ciudad, expandiéndose en las plazas y avenidas circundantes. Optamos por esta segunda solución. Consideramos, por la forma y por el momento histórico en que nos encontramos, o sea, que es una oportunidad única para Valencia el construir un potente corredor con un valor medioambiental y cultural. Si ven ustedes en el cuarto dibujo, justamente hemos visto el proyecto que Kathryn nos ha comentado ampliamente y cómo la intervención del Ayuntamiento, de la plaza del Ayuntamiento, en parte retoma ese eje articulador de la ciudad, que es una oportunidad que podamos o que se pueda realizar, porque cogería el Boulevard Sur, cogería el eje central del parque, ese eje sinusoidal, un poco sinusoidal, llegaría hasta la Estación del Norte, ya rehabilitada en su momento, y entraría en el ámbito que nosotros vamos a trabajar, con Marqués de Sotelo como una de las arterias principales, que entra en la plaza del Ayuntamiento, la atraviesa y el corredor llegaría hasta San Vicente, las plazas de la Reina y de la Virgen, o bien la plaza del Mercado. O sea que tendríamos un gran corredor que atravesaría toda la ciudad. Es una oportunidad única que yo creo que no debemos de perder, y en esto estaría basado en parte nuestra propuesta de intervención. Por otro lado, indicar lo que nos centra en esta reunión, que sería la vinculación de nuestro trabajo con la naturaleza. Ahí tenemos dos cuestiones. En primer lugar, ¿qué nos brinda la naturaleza? La naturaleza nos brinda, para nosotros, un clima y una luz. La luz mediterránea y el clima de nuestra ciudad. Y una manera de usar la plaza. Es una manera particular, es una manera muy, muy propia de nuestra cultura y muy propia a esa alegría de vivir, ¿no? O sea, que podemos de alguna manera entender en la parte mediterránea. ¿Qué podemos hacer nosotros para vincularnos con la naturaleza? Por un lado, a través de un proyecto donde tenga muy en cuenta la sostenibilidad. La sostenibilidad entendida como entrar amablemente a vincularnos con la naturaleza, considerando, por un lado, la reutilización de posibles materiales existentes en la plaza, tanto en el nivel que vamos a trabajar como en los niveles inferiores, donde hay adoquines de basalto, hay piedra de muy buena calidad que podríamos reutilizar, hay bueno, pues una serie de piezas que nosotros vamos a intentar en nuestro proyecto incorporar. Y en segundo lugar, evitar la retirada a vertedero del máximo de los materiales. Utilizando unos molinillos, unos molinos, intentar triturar todo aquello que podamos y utilizarlo ya como zahorras para la nueva construcción de los materiales. Esto ya lo hicimos precisamente con el Ayuntamiento de Valencia en el Parque del Oeste, donde prácticamente vertedero fue muy poco y reutilizamos todo el material en la construcción de la nueva área del parque que trabajamos. Por otro lado, estaría el crear una plaza urbana que ofrezca confort, durabilidad y prestancia con un solado característico. Un solado que en principio debería ser con cierta dureza, porque el uso es muy fuerte en la plaza, e intentando incluir suelos drenantes donde fuera posible para intentar humedecer el subsuelo lo más que podamos. Y luego, en tercer lugar, intentar aclimatar el ámbito. Ese aclimatar el ámbito sería para, de alguna manera, poder tener unos grados menos de temperatura en verano y dejar pasar el sol en invierno. La vegetación tendría, en ese caso, un papel dominante. Ese papel dominante implicaría que tendría que ser una vegetación con unas características determinadas. Tendría que tener cierta transparencia en momentos determinados del año porque hay una serie de actos que la necesitan, ¿no? Entonces, la vegetación principal sería caducifolia y esto nos permitiría la sombra en verano y el sol en invierno. Esta vegetación tendría que adecuarse a unas dimensiones, a unos marcos de plantación propios para que todos los actos que se desarrollen allí, de cabalgatas, de recorridos procesionales, pues se puedan hacer sin ningún tipo de problema. Y debe tender también a una condición particular. La plaza tiene una calidad arquitectónica singular y ese arbolado que tengamos que incorporar sea un arbolado de una altura determinada para permitir sobre él poder recuperar la arquitectura de la plaza. Esas condiciones serían necesarias para la vegetación. Y por último, intentar que la vegetación que vayamos a colocar sea una vegetación amena en el sentido de que tengamos diferentes texturas o diferentes colores a lo largo del tiempo. Esta condición es importante para que de alguna manera la ciudadanía, el usuario, pueda entender el momento del año en que nos encontramos, si estamos en verano, estamos en invierno, estamos en primavera, donde habría unas texturas y unos colores diferentes en cada momento. En suma, nuestra intervención en relación con la naturaleza sería, en principio, una propuesta que intenta articular toda la ciudad dentro de unos ejes medioambientalmente activos. Por otro lado, vivir de una manera agradable dentro de, en el paso, procurando entender el paso del tiempo en la propia plaza cuando lo estás viviendo. De manera que busquemos un vínculo atractivo con la naturaleza. Muchas gracias.
Gracias, Miguel. Marta García Chico nos introduce en este plan de biodiversidad para la ciudad de Valencia.
Yo tengo que pasar las imágenes.
Sí.
¿Cómo lo hago para pasarla con esto? Si no te importa.
La verdad es que esas tres perspectivas que estamos conociendo en este momento complementan muy bien las ideas y los enfoques de Kathryn Gustafson. Vamos a tener una idea muy clara de hacia dónde se está moviendo la ciudad de Valencia y cómo está posicionándose dentro de una ciudad conectada con la naturaleza, sin duda, y con los ciudadanos. Vamos a ver también esas cuestiones también controvertidas alrededor de la sociedad y la cultura de los nuevos parques. Marta, gracias.
Hola, buenas tardes. Enhorabuena a Kathryn y a Miguel de Rey por el trabajo que han desarrollado y gracias al colegio por invitarme. Yo estoy aquí como la directora del equipo que redactó el Plan Verde de Biodiversidad de la Ciudad de Valencia y es un plan que no se puede contar en 5 o 10 minutos y entonces voy a poner simplemente unas imágenes, decir unas líneas generales, intentar hacer un poco de interés para que en algún momento se presente realmente a la ciudadanía, ¿no? Porque, bueno, empiezo. En el enlace que habéis visto antes, supuestamente está todo el documento. Yo entré esta mañana y no lo he visto, entonces no sé si lo han quitado, pero bueno, supongo que esto es un documento de dominio público, porque es un plan aprobado, entonces entiendo que podéis acceder de alguna manera a él. Bueno, el Plan Verde de Biodiversidad de la Ciudad de Valencia es un plan que lo que trata es de naturalizar la ciudad, naturalizarla para que sea más sostenible, cueste menos, sea más habitable y también sea más resiliente frente al cambio climático. Para ello nosotros lo que hicimos es durante un año, casi 2 años, estudiamos lo que teníamos, utilizando el trabajo de mucha gente y analizando exhaustivamente todos los apartados que tenían que ver con la infraestructura verde y la biodiversidad de la ciudad. Esto nos permitió hacer un diagnóstico de la situación que teníamos y hacer una planificación que se tradujo en un plan director que estaba compuesto por un conjunto de planes de acción y por una propuesta espacial de la infraestructura verde. En este análisis, pues bueno, estudiamos todos los espacios verdes capaces de dar servicios ecosistémicos a la ciudadanía, se clasificaron, se analizaron, aquí veis un poco en términos de números lo que había, una barbaridad, muchísimos espacios verdes, todos analizándolos, se recogieron datos de casi todos los espacios verdes de las zonas verdes de Valencia y estos datos nos permitieron, mediante un sistema, una metodología de servicios ecosistémicos, llegar a valorar los servicios socioambientales que esos espacios verdes, esas zonas verdes, nos daban a los ciudadanos. Esto, veis, es una matriz en la que relacionábamos esos indicadores con los servicios ecosistémicos. Total, que bueno, después de este análisis exhaustivo conseguimos tener una lectura de qué espacios verdes, qué zonas verdes de la Ciudad de Valencia nos aportaban realmente una buena calidad y cuáles estaban escasos y había que mejorar. A partir de ahí, y también haciendo otros estudios más espaciales, pues aquí, por ejemplo, veis en el plano de la izquierda, vosotros, qué zonas no tienen a menos de 15 minutos los ciudadanos un espacio verde de calidad. Bueno, pues todo este tipo de planos y de análisis nos permitieron hacer una propuesta espacial que planteaba 3 escalas. Una primera escala, una supramunicipal, más relacionada con la identidad geográfica. Una segunda escala relacionada con la ciudad y otra tercera escala relacionada con lo que es la identidad de barrio. Aquí veis un poco planos que no voy a explicar porque si no, no voy a tardar mucho más, de la escala supramunicipal, que tiene que ver con los flujos del río, con la huerta, la escala urbana, que son más ejes de ciudad, y la escala de barrio, que es un trabajo mucho más detallado de cada barrio, ¿no? Y bueno, para conseguir este mapa futuro a un horizonte para el 2050 se trazaban 7 líneas estratégicas, cada una de ellas repletas de planes de acción que de manera transversal trataban de ir construyendo esa realidad futura de una ciudad más verde y más sostenible. Aquí veis un poco así los esquemas y nada, voy a mostrar unas imágenes donde cómo se intercambiaban, o sea, cómo esos planes de acción iban a esa realidad. Bueno, este plan se aprobó ¿un año? No lo sé, sí creo que más de un año. Nosotros nos fuimos a Alicante. Bueno, he de decir que este plan tuvo un plan de participación ciudadana, donde trabajaron mucha gente bueno, algunos de los que están aquí. De hecho, hay una foto. Y realmente fue muy interesante. ¿Eres tú? Sí. No estaba preparado. Y bueno, nutrió a este plan, o sea, no fue un plan hecho en un despacho, sino que intentó coger todo lo que realmente había hecho, que hay muchísimo en Valencia, y trasladarlo a una propuesta realista, muy ambiciosa, pero que tiene como muchos aspectos que se pueden ir ejecutando, ¿no? Bueno, el plan terminó y nosotros nos fuimos. Y realmente yo no sé qué ha pasado con el plan. Seguramente en el público habrá gente que sepa mucho más que yo qué está ocurriendo con ese plan verde. Pero bueno, yo desde mi punto de vista ajena, lejana, que estoy en Alicante y digo, bueno, que habrá sido el plan, pues pienso, ¿qué hemos hecho mal? ¿Qué podíamos haber hecho mejor? ¿No? Y entonces, bueno, a ver, en un principio nosotros planteamos que teníamos que hacer un plan de participación ciudadana mucho más enérgico, mucho más vinculado a la ciudadanía, porque la manera que tenemos, entiendo yo, de conseguir que un plan sea, o un proyecto, o lo que sea, tenga realmente conexión con la ciudad, es que la gente se entere y que sepa por qué, que sepa que no es una cosa flipada, estética o un capricho, sino que tiene un porqué, ¿no? Y los porqués se hacen a partir de un plan un plan de participación. Eso no lo hicimos del todo como nosotros hubiéramos querido. Estuvo bien, pero yo, según mi punto de vista, faltó contacto con la gente, ¿no? Faltó, pues, en primer lugar, un presupuesto adecuado para poder abarcarlo y quizás un poco menos de miedo a realmente salir a la calle y hacer acciones que la gente pudiera entender. Nosotros planteamos a un principio, en un origen inicial, hacer unos jardines experimentales de la diversidad, que no es otra cosa que llevar a cada barrio o a cada distrito un proyecto donde de manera totalmente espontánea, directa y participativa se fueran como poniendo esas líneas de acción que nosotros planteamos in situ y la gente fuera viendo realmente qué pasaba con ello y el porqué de esas actuaciones. Esto se quedó en el aire y, bueno, como veis, el plan no sabemos qué ha pasado con él, ¿no? Entonces, ahí va mi reflexión final y no me enrollo mucho. Y es que yo creo que tenemos que ir a este problema endémico que tenemos en los estudios de arquitectura, paisajismo. Yo soy ingeniera agrónoma, yo no soy arquitecta y, bueno, yo alucino con lo que hacéis, pero yo me he dedicado más a la participación ciudadana, al medio ambiente y a la parte más paisajística de los proyectos. Pero tengo una larga experiencia de proyectos cadáver, proyectos que os han quedado a mitad porque ha cambiado el gobierno o porque ha habido una crisis o porque se ha construido un jardín súper bonito, elaborado, donde se han seleccionado todas las especies vegetales con un mimo tremendo, pero ha cambiado el gobierno o no han sabido gestionarlo o resulta que las personas que tenían que mantenerlo no los habían formado para ese tipo de jardinería, a lo mejor un poco más naturalizada, que imita más el comportamiento natural de un bosque o de un prado, ¿no? Entonces, todo eso, ¿cómo se puede solucionar? Yo creo que no hay mucha solución, pero alguna podríamos encontrarla en educar a la sociedad desde el origen, desde las escuelas. Entonces, ahí está que yo, después de terminar el plan verde, dije, voy a descansar un poco de la administración pública. Yo ya no quiero hacer proyectos para la administración pública, pero si me queréis contratar me podéis llamar, pero me va a costar. Entonces yo me dedico ahora, me llamaron de un colegio y me dijeron, a ver, queremos que arregles este patio. Y yo dije, un patio que no tenía nada de vegetación, colegio privado. Y dije, yo no te voy a hacer un proyecto de un patio, yo te voy a hacer una propuesta metodológica para que tus alumnos, los estudiantes de la ESO y de bachiller, ellos participen de esa mejora de ese patio. Entonces yo me rayé y hice una propuesta metodológica que la voy a pasar muy rápido, no la voy a explicar porque me mataría, en la que los patios se convierten en infraestructura verde. Son como la píldora donde empezamos a reflexionar sobre el espacio público y cómo ese espacio público puede dotar de beneficios a la ciudad, ¿no? Entonces, planteé una propuesta que tenía el patio como oportunidad, lo veía como oportunidad, como laboratorio al aire libre, como una porción de ciudad a experimentar, como una experiencia piloto para la naturalización, que permitiera un aprendizaje significativo de nuestros niños y adolescentes, y niñas y adolescentes, y que además fuera un ejemplo de custodia del territorio. Nuestros niños y niñas están cada vez más alejados de la realidad física, o sea, están totalmente absortos en la pantalla. Y hablarles de medio ambiente, hablarles de crisis ambiental, hablarles de la realidad del mundo, cómo funcionan las cosas, está bien, pero no lo terminan de integrar porque ellos están en su mundo, ¿no? Siempre ha pasado, pero ahora mucho más. Yo tengo hijos, los que tengan hijos lo saben. Bueno, el caso es que yo entiendo que la única esperanza es que ellos lo vivan in situ, como queríamos hacer con los jardines experimentales, y que experimentándolo, viendo que su patio con un árbol es mucho más agradable y pueden mirar el móvil, ahora ya no, debajo de un árbol sin morirse de calor, o viendo cómo el suelo filtra el agua y eso permite que no se encharque y explicarles que eso hace que el ciclo del agua funciona y se alimentan los acuíferos. Todo esto se puede conseguir que tengan un poquito más de sensibilidad en un futuro y luchen por un plan verde o luchen por un proyecto que se ha ejecutado. Entonces aquí paso rápido, planteé una metodología, 3 fases, donde primero acercas al estudiante a la complejidad del patio escolar, le das herramientas para que él mismo pueda proyectar y finalmente se procede a naturalizar el patio escolar. Bueno, al colegio le encantó y creo que lo van a hacer este año. Estoy en negociación.
Muchísimas gracias, Marta.
Muchas
la verdad
gracias.
Es que es un proyecto maravilloso que también esperamos que se pueda poner en marcha lo antes posible, igual que el plan de biodiversidad. Y nos van a contar un proyecto que sí está en marcha, que tiene desde el principio implicaciones con los propios ciudadanos y que siempre se ve como un referente importantísimo de la ciudad de Valencia. Arturo Sanz Martínez nos cuenta el gran proyecto y el gran hecho del Parque Turia.
Bueno, mientras llega la imagen, soy Arturo Sanz. Estoy aquí como representante del equipo redactor que ganamos el concurso del Parque de Desembocadura. Somos Carmel Gradolí, Adrián Torres y Fran López, además de los paisajistas, los ingenieros, aparejadores, instalaciones y todo el equipo, ¿no? Bueno, lo bueno es que ganamos el concurso y nos contrataron en junio, o sea, estamos ya redactando el proyecto y va para adelante. O sea, no van a ser todo malas noticias. Vale, vamos a degüello ya con el tema. ¿Esto es el río Turia o el colector norte? Se puede llamar de las dos maneras. Os invito a que recorráis todo el jardín del Turia y cuando llegáis al Ágora hay una valla de autopista, os asomáis en la valla y os lleváis la gran sorpresa. Es esto. Yo no lo conocía y mira que no lo conocía hasta que empezamos a prepararnos para el concurso. ¿Qué es lo que ocurre? Que la naturaleza es poderosa y es muy tozuda. Hace 40 años decidimos hacer el Jardín del Turia y decidimos tapar el río. Lo canalizamos con un colector que va enterrado por debajo del lecho del río y hicimos un jardín precioso sobre él. Yo quiero pensar, Han pasado 40 años. ¿Qué cosas han cambiado en 40 años? Yo creo que hay dos muy gordas. Una es que hace 40 años todavía teníamos el shock de la riada, y la otra es que no veíamos un río, veíamos una cloaca, veíamos un desagüe. Porque hace 40 años no limpiábamos nada del agua que ensuciábamos. Ahora el agua ya la limpiamos, ¿no? Entonces la naturaleza es muy persistente y ese colector norte que circula por debajo del río está recogiendo los acuíferos, el nivel freático, porque el agua no es solo el agua que vemos en superficie en un río, es toda la cuenca y toda el agua que recoge toda esa cuenca, y eso va por debajo. Lo que ocurre ahora es que del colector norte, cuando se acaba el colector norte, sale agua limpia, llueva o no llueva. Esta foto no es después de una lluvia. O sea, todos los días baja esa agua. Estáis viendo, hay peces y hay patos, pero vamos, patos de verdad, colberts. O sea, no... eso fue un gran shock para nosotros, ¿no? El decir, ostras, el río está ahí abajo. Esto da mucho que pensar. O sea, da mucho que pensar. El Jardín del Turia puede haber tramos más formalistas, neoclásicos, postmoderns, bosque forestal, ya sabéis que es un compendio de todo tipo de formas de trabajar, pero hay algo que se mantiene y es que el río está abajo, enterrado, y lo que vemos arriba es una recreación del río, ¿no? A veces. Entonces, la propuesta que hicimos es muy clara, esto es el río que aparece de nuevo bajo nuestros pies y lo tenemos que cuidar, mantener y conservar. Entonces, se pasa con esta. O con esta. Voy a pasar. Sí, funciona. Vale. Básicamente es un proyecto que lo que intenta es renaturalizar todos los márgenes del jardín a partir del Ágora, de la Ciudad de las Ciencias, un poquito recuperando el trazado sinuoso, incluso intentando recuperar las islas que aparecen en los planos históricos que había en el lecho del río, e intentando meter fitorreparación del agua. Lo que pasa es que hay muy poca superficie, o sea, para limpiar el agua hace falta mucha superficie, aquí no la hay. Entonces también te das cuenta de que al final al proyecto le llamamos confluir y le llamábamos tiempos de reparación. Tiempos de reparación, ¿me la hacéis una idea? Ecosocial, sí. 3 reparaciones. Una ecológica. Lo primero, y les insistimos mucho a los políticos que se acaban de ir, no es un proyecto de hacer un jardín, o sea, no sirve de nada hacer un jardín más o menos bonito. Lo primero que hay que hacer es reparar el ecosistema. El agua sale limpia del colector norte, pero se va ensuciando progresivamente. Se tira el agua del oceanográfico, que es agua salada, con lo cual la salinidad es muy alta en todo el cauce. Hay algunos, cuando llueve mucho, o sea, todas las aguas fecales se bombean a Pinedo, pero cuando llueve mucho el sistema no da de sí y se vierten fecales con pluviales. Y por último hay un gran pozo de lodos contaminados de la química Cross que estaba allí en esta zona y que hace que todo el lecho del río esté contaminado. Vale, entonces ante eso lo primero es reparar ecológicamente. Y para eso hay que ponerse las pilas, hay que empezar a limpiar el agua, hay que hacer tanques de tormentas para recoger la primera agua en épocas de lluvia y hay que dragar el río para sacar los lodos. Y tendremos agua limpia, eso es lo primero. No es razonable a plazo, o sea, hay que empezar a ponerse las pilas y hay que empezar a hacerlo porque no podemos tener un parque todo lo bonito que quieras con el agua contaminada. Entonces, lo primero es reparación ecológica. Lo segundo le llamamos reparación urbana, es coser todos los rotos que se puedan coser en esta zona. Ahora os los contaré los más importantes. Y el tercero es reparación social, porque el barrio de Benimaclet, el barrio de Nazaret es un barrio muy castigado muy castigado y que se merece todo el apoyo y toda la inversión y todo. No os voy a contar la historia de Nazaret porque todos la sabéis, ¿no? Bien, a nivel urbano es importante 2 puntos, os quería comentar. Esto, no, así. No, así, sí, sí.
Sí.
Vale. Hay oportunidades. Una es que cuando se soterren las vías del tren, se quitará el escaléctric que hay aquí. Voy a pasar a la otra imagen que es más cercana, sí. Vale. Y se puede conectar esta bolsa de terreno que nos aparece con toda la huerta protegida de Encorts y de la Punta, que es un poquito esta conexión que os aparece aquí. La otra para nosotros también muy importante es que el corredor verde que supone el río Turia, cuando llega, se puede bifurcar en dos, uno continuando el río y el otro doblando hacia el norte, para unir todo el corredor de 10 kilómetros de parque que tenemos con la dársena de la Marina de Valencia, que ya es pública, y con todas las playas del norte, ¿no? Ahí está el PAI del Grao. Está en elaboración. Es una oportunidad para hacer las cosas bien, porque en las últimas propuestas aquí hay una fila de torres que, claro, las ponen en fila para estar con vistas a la marina, pero reubicando esa edificación, el permitir esa conexión. Y por último, ya puestos a soñar, habrá un día que la ciudad de Valencia será lo suficientemente madura para que el río llegue al mar. Solo faltan 150 metros que están taponados por el puerto. El gran... A ver, seamos serios. Tenemos un corredor verde precioso de 10 kilómetros, pero está cortado al principio porque no hay conexión de todo el jardín del Turia con el parque fluvial del río Turia por el nudo de autopistas que hay de la V30 y tampoco llega al mar porque faltan 200 metros de puerto. Entonces, soñemos y pensemos que es lo que tenemos que hacer. No sé cuándo, algún día será posible. Y bueno, os enseño ya unas imágenes. Estos son, arriba una imagen más de cerca, pues unas márgenes naturalizadas. Abajo una vista aérea con esa conexión que os comento hacia la izquierda, hacia la dársena. Y por último, vamos a ver, es lo más que podemos ofrecerle ahora al barrio de Nazaret, es unir el río con esta bolsa de terreno que ha surgido porque el puerto se ha retrasado. Y para eso este punto era muy estrecho. De hecho, daros cuenta que el cajero, o sea, el puerto ahora, aquí ha cedido 100 metros, ahora el río está encajonado desde aquí. Para eso hace falta demoler 100 metros de cajero de hormigón, que se nos lleva 1/3 del presupuesto previsto, pero claro, es imprescindible porque si no demolemos, no unimos el jardín del Turia con el Parque de Nazaret, ¿no? Hay que empezar a pensar en que es tiempo de gastarse el dinero en reparar y arreglar los desastres que hemos hecho en los últimos años, ¿no? Vale, muchas gracias.
Muchísimas gracias. Comenzamos entonces ya el debate, el intercambio de ideas y proyectos en el que sería estupendo que en un momento determinado pudieseis participar todos. Vamos con 4 cuestiones, en realidad, el impacto social y cultural de estos nuevos paisajes urbanos, la compatibilidad con el tráfico rodado, vamos a hablar, por supuesto, de cambio climático y vamos a hablar de futuro. La primera cuestión para todos, pero específicamente, si os parece...
There, but where's your leisure? And a lot of people use a car to go down to the beach, right? And they go down to the beach past the Aquafera and they take a car because there's no way to get there, right? There might be one bus one time. So it's, again, what do you use your car for and how do you replace it? I live in Paris. You can barely drive in Paris anymore. The mayor has taken out so many classic road, Boulevard Voltaire. Parking, 2 roads, two lanes. Now we have 1 lane each way for buses, cars. We have bikes. We have bigger sidewalks. That's it. You don't want to take your personal car anymore because you can't move. You know, it's just, it's stopped. And so at some point you make a decision, oh, I guess I am going to take the metro. Guess what? But then I have to carry stuff. So I think we still have a way to go. Also, we have in Paris what is called critères. So every car's emissions is measured and you have a stamp on your windshield, 1, 2, and 3, and 4. 1 is your almost nothing, electric cars or my hybrid or stuff like that. 2 and 3. If you have a 3, 90% of the days you can't even go into the city or you'll get a huge ticket because you're a polluter. So you have to punish people for having polluting cars. So there's all sorts of ways to pull back the traffic. But the thing is, you have to have services, ambulances, buses, fire, garbage. Those 4 you cannot live without. So you've got to figure out how to do them. That doesn't require huge amounts of roads, but you have to have something, especially fire. Those trucks are heavy, you know, and you can have some water sources that they can plug into so they're not carrying water, but still they're heavy. And I know you just had a big fire a year ago. Access for fire trucks, firework, it's just, yeah, it's not worth it. It's fatal. So, anyway.
Miguel, no sé si en este proyecto probablemente no, pero en otros proyectos tenéis seguramente también esta visión y este pensamiento del tráfico rodado. ¿Cómo diseñar nuevos procesos para el tráfico en Valencia?
Bueno, yo creo que el tráfico es complicado, es un tema complicadísimo que yo no soy tampoco un experto en estas cuestiones, pero yo creo que en Valencia hay una condición que nosotros teníamos en la plaza, por ejemplo, en la plaza del Ayuntamiento, la propuesta que hicimos nosotros, de cómo resolver el tráfico, la accesibilidad democrática. Entonces, la accesibilidad democrática, de alguna manera, la entendíamos como que todas las personas, de una manera más o menos fácil, puedan acceder próximas a la plaza. O sea, para lo cual, el autobús, por ejemplo, en este caso era importante porque no hay servicio de metro en la plaza, es difícil que se coloque en estos momentos, no creo que hubiera, y la única parada está un poco lejana, o sea, bueno, no mucho, pero un poco. Entonces, la accesibilidad era importante, por lo cual cortar el tráfico absolutamente era una utopía, o sea, no se podía cortar. Por ejemplo, la parte baja del triángulo de Periodista Zati a Calle Lauria es una zona donde el tráfico sería necesario que pasara y, sobre todo, el tráfico de autobuses o el tráfico privado de las personas que viven cerca o el tráfico de taxis para poder acceder, como decía Kathryn, personas mayores o personas que vienen con maletas o con bultos o con lo que sea. O la existencia de pequeños comercios que es necesario que tengan tráfico. Por ejemplo, en la parte sur de la plaza hay unos kioscos de flores en los cuales, si no hay tráfico, no tienen comercio. Por lo cual es necesario que puedas acceder a ellos para comprar ramos o llevar las flores o llevar cuestiones de este tipo. Pero el tema de la accesibilidad yo creo que es muy complejo en este sentido. Por ejemplo, en el caso de nuestra plaza, la plaza que estamos trabajando, es una plaza en la cual en estos momentos hay una línea, que es una línea de autobús, que pasa desde Barcas a Marqués de Sotelo. Esta línea corta absolutamente la plaza y le haría imposible de ser una plaza peatonal. Entonces, los elementos tangentes, los elementos que podrías a lo menos ocultar de alguna manera, como lo hace Kathryn en el tráfico, o sea, con orografía o con elementos de este tipo, puede funcionar bien, pero hay que trabajarlo de una manera dura, o sea, dura. En el caso, por ejemplo, de Castellón, que utilizamos en uno de los parques que hemos hecho en la Universidad de Castellón, en el Jardín de Sentidos, hicimos el parque y un poco de tiempo después apareció un tranvía, o sea que un trolebús mejor, que da vueltas, y entonces una solución orográfica a la manera de Kathryn, con pequeñas praderas que se levantaban y ocultaban el paso del ferrocarril, del tranvía por varios sitios, y ha dado una solución muy buena en el paisaje. O sea, funciona muy bien.
It's an interesting idea to understand if somehow, I'm just thinking on my feet, but is there a way, and maybe it's not possible, to create an inner city rail line that fire trucks, ambulances, all are on the same system? I mean, it's very utopic, but, and on surface, yeah, but it's a rail system that does all the services. And there's no cars. It's just the rail that does all the services. But yeah, all the public services and deliveries, everything. So you just get one network that works. I don't know. I'm not a traffic person, but I'm always mystified how we're going to get something to work if we don't move the objects. We are consumers. We eat. We dress. You know, we've got stuff, furniture, boxes, crap. You know, but it's so. How do we move it? And I think that's my biggest. But maybe there is a network way, or maybe it's going to be drones that pull it up. ¿No?
Bueno, aquí hay opiniones diversas.
No drones, no drones.
Lo que es cierto es que la arquitectura y el diseño hoy está dedicada también a pensar nuevos sistemas y nuevos procesos. Y la ciudad, desde luego, es un campo de batalla, como estamos viendo, ¿no? Estamos viendo que avanza, evoluciona y tiene que haber nuevos criterios y nuevas perspectivas. Y ahí estáis todos vosotros para profundizar y dar esas respuestas a las necesidades. Entramos en otra dimensión que tiene que ver con esta última, porque es la polución, como decía Kathryn. Efectivamente, tenemos que pensar en el futuro inmediato. Si vamos a tener coches que no emiten contaminación y que no polucionan, pues quizá tenemos que pensar en ello, desde luego. Si no hacen ruido, pues también hay otra dimensión diferente de la propia ciudad. En fin, no solamente tenemos que pensar las formas de vida actuales, sino hacia dónde van evolucionando en el futuro inmediato. Pero entramos en un tema también controvertido, que es el cambio climático, the climate changes, y cómo afectan a este nuevo paisaje de la ciudad. No sé si quieres, Miguel, dar un poco respuesta. Perdón, Arturo, discúlpame. A esta inquietud global y universal, ¿no? De cómo hay un cambio, un paradigma de cambio en el clima, Arturo, y cómo vosotros, digamos, como arquitectos, como diseñadores de la renaturalización de las ciudades, dais respuesta a estos cambios.
You know, but wait a minute. You know, it's like if I don't think we know where we're going, okay? Right now, we have pollution caused by fossil fuels. You get rid of fossil fuels, do you have no pollution? I mean, so then what happens? I mean, I don't think we've really thought about it. And I think we have to solve pollution. And then will solving pollution solve global warming? Maybe too little, too late? Maybe not. Maybe, you know, I think we've got to stop the pollution. I mean, that's the first thing. And one of the things, I'm going to hijack your thing. I was in a very interesting conference in Madrid that was by the Norman Foster Foundation. And what they are doing is they're using education to change the way cities work, so that and they're doing it by convincing people that the environment's bad for your health, okay? So a lot of people are making money off fossil fuels. The really rich. If you can show that person, the really rich, that his son has got lung cancer because of fossil fuels, he'll be against it, okay? You've got to do public health. Public health is going to be your access. It's an equalizer. Everybody dies, right? People who are poor die sooner, okay? But people that are rich, if they're in a polluted environment, it's going to kill them. And so I think their idea is using public health as your spear on your pollution is something that I think that foundation is really working on. I don't know if you know the app called Healthy Cities. You can download it on your phone. And during certain months, if you do more than 6,000 steps a day for 3 months, they will plant a tree. Last year, they planted, I think, 360,000 trees in the urban environments. So it's a combination of things, of trying to get people to be more healthy and understand that our environment pollution is killing you. And so I know it's really blunt, but
I know. The Foundation and the Institute of Research of Norman Foster es muy interesante que podáis seguir todas las investigaciones del instituto, del nuevo instituto, lleva 2 años
incredible.
casi, de investigación con un grupo de estudiantes y de arquitectos y diseñadores de todo el mundo. Arturo, volvemos a ti y volvemos a esta opinión en realidad y esa implicación dentro de este cambio climático que vivimos todos. Casi nada, pero que nos golpea diariamente con una información,
a ver, yo creo
hiperinformación sobre ello, ¿no? En todos los medios.
Yo creo que el problema, como dice Kathryn, no está en que los coches sean eléctricos. O sea, lo primero es que no contaminen, eso está claro. Pero tampoco creo que la solución sea que sean eléctricos. El problema es la ocupación del suelo. El problema es que tenemos tan interiorizado el vehículo que diseñamos las ciudades y lo primero que hacemos es trazar las calles, que incluso cuando trazamos recorridos peatonales los hacemos rectos, rectilíneos o en escuadra. Y eso es el planeamiento que estamos haciendo. Ahora mismo,
más allá de los coches, ¿no? Los efectos del cambio climático, como es el calentamiento, las lluvias torrenciales.
¿Qué quieres que te diga?
Bueno,
que ojalá no nos
¿no?
vayamos al garete. O sea, la cosa pinta bastante mal. No sabemos lo que va a pasar. O sea, no lo sabemos. No lo sabemos. ¿Hacer todo lo posible? Pues claro. Pero tenemos que cambiar la forma de pensar. Yo veo a las parejas jóvenes que cuando tienen hijos tienen que cambiar el coche porque tienen que meter 3 sillas de niños y no les cabe en el coche normal y se tienen que comprar un todoterreno o una furgoneta, ¿no? Con lo cual va asociado tener hijos con tener un súper trasto, ¿no? Y voy a Dinamarca y veo que la gente tenía unas bicicletas de toda la vida, que son las que se fabrican en Cristiania y que ahora pueden ser eléctricas, y veo que van las familias enteras. Conduce el padre o la madre y la otra pareja y los niños van en el carro. O sea, claro, imagínate los dos opuestos. Quiero decirte, necesitamos un cambio muy fuerte mental, cultural y ideológico. Y bueno,
yo creo que estamos en ellos.
Uf.
¿O no?
No nos ha servido para nada la pandemia. No nos ha servido para nada. Yo lo veo verde.
Our cities have to figure out ways that the pedestrian and the bicycle work. Okay, and part of that problem is protecting the pedestrian from the bicycle. All right.
Yeah.
Yes, and having specific rules for the bicycles.
And education in the bicycles.
Yes.
Not only in the bicycles, the cars, the drivers. In Madrid is really, really dangerous.
Okay, but now what's happening in cities that have lots of bikes, there are signals for bikes and signals for cars.
Absolutely,
they're not the same, okay? And it's really important they're different because then you make the bicycles safer and you make the pedestrians safer from the bikes, from the cars. So all of a sudden we have a third system, which is bikes. But if you get it to work, people will use it more. I think right now, like you said, Madrid, I would never have. I've just got, oh my
It's
God.
impossible.
Well, but we're going to
Rather
get there.
impossible.
We're going to get there. But I'm going to have to go.
Entramos en la última cuestión. Una cuestión que hemos apuntado, cada uno de vosotros ha dado claves muy interesantes sobre el futuro. Ya sé que es entrar en otra dimensión con una gran nebulosa. Vamos a centrarnos en el futuro inmediato. Hacemos una ronda de todos, ¿no? El futuro centrado efectivamente en lo que estamos hablando hoy, en estos espacios verdes, en estos nuevos paisajes de la ciudad. ¿Cómo ves la evolución, digamos, no lo que ves ahora mismo en Valencia, sino el futuro inmediato? Vemos una progresión con vuestros proyectos, pero un poquito más allá. ¿Cómo observas esta evolución y este progreso? Sí.
Bueno, no sé si soy muy feliz con la perspectiva futura, porque han aparecido una serie de proyectos que a mí me parecían interesantes, como por ejemplo el proyecto del plan de la huerta, que se aprobó hace unos años, pero que no le veo una salida fácil. O sea, no le veo ni salida fácil ni salida. O sea, lo veo muy complicado. Y de hecho, no se ha mejorado demasiado desde que se ha aprobado esa ley. Entonces, me es difícil ver un futuro bueno en este sentido cuando, por ejemplo, el plan que ha habido, que es un estudio, un trabajo, no sé si se ha hecho proyecto, de analizar todo el frente costero de nuestro territorio. Es un tema difícil, es un tema muy complicado. No creo que tampoco se haya llegado a una solución buena. La existencia, por ejemplo, de corredores verdes en el territorio. Yo, por ejemplo, hay un itinerario que lo hago a menudo, que es de aquí a Alicante, o de aquí a Altea sobre todo, y hay un valle que está en el río Gorgos, que es fantástico, o sea, porque es un valle que con un ancho de unos 3 kilómetros o 4, tiene una profundidad de unos 20 o 25 kilómetros en los cuales no ves absolutamente ninguna casa, ninguna. O sea, el que no se utilice, por ejemplo, eso como un corredor verde y se selle porque es difícil a lo largo de una costa tan antropizada encontrarte 20 kilómetros de profundidad visual con un fondo de montañas y de sierras donde no hay ninguna casa ni se ve ninguna carretera. O sea, esta es muy importante. Y es un río que luego va a bajar y luego ya sí que tiene densidad en la parte de abajo, pero bueno, también se puede trabajar bien. Pues yo creo que, por ejemplo, estos corredores verdes deberían de analizarse de una manera exhaustiva y además meterse ya directamente a protegerlos porque son muy frágiles, el paisaje es frágil. Y entonces nada más que a alguien se le ocurre meter una nueva carretera o meter un plan de urbanización, destroza toda esa posibilidad. Yo creo que no hay una voluntad política fuerte, yo no me refiero a este gobierno, digo en general, una voluntad política fuerte de conservar el paisaje, conservar la naturaleza.
Bueno, Marta, una última opinión. Has dado claves muy importantes de futuro. Un último comentario.
Bueno, yo pienso que las herramientas las tenemos. En Valencia hay un plan verde y de biodiversidad con un estudio exhaustivo, hay un plan de la huerta, hay un montón de proyectos que tratan de aplicar soluciones basadas en la naturaleza a la ciudad y hacerla mucho más preparada frente al cambio climático. Falta dar el paso de que todos esos proyectos que son apolíticos no estén a expensas de cambios políticos, es decir, que realmente sean de los ciudadanos y las ciudadanas y que se desarrollen. No sé cómo se puede hacer, eso no sé si hay una varita mágica, pues está la educación, como he dicho antes, está la concienciación. Sí que es verdad que cada vez estamos todos más concienciados, cada vez todos sabemos más, todos tenemos mucho más accesible información sobre los efectos de las cosas, pero también estamos más atontados y también lo he dicho antes, ¿no? Entonces, bueno, seamos positivos y sigamos ahí poniendo granitos de arena y esperemos que, bueno, no es que es una cuestión de que o sí o no, blanco o negro, ahora ya no hay muchas opciones de seguir haciéndolo mal. El Patibel, por ejemplo, era como un plan que trataba de ya el mínimo de protección. Bueno, pues también está parado, no sabemos muy bien qué va a pasar. No sé, si no actuamos ya, si no cogemos el toro por los cuernos, está claro que se nos va a acabar el chollo, ¿no? Entonces, antes hablabais de lo del coche, que yo no he intervenido, pero bueno, ya no se puede debatir si es importante arbolar una calle o no. O sea, es que eso no puede porque es que el árbol es el que nos va a permitir seguir viviendo dentro de, a lo mejor, no sé, 5 años, cuando las temperaturas sigan incrementándose. El gestionar el agua, el que los suelos no sean impermeables, es una cosa que tampoco se puede debatir, entiendo yo. O sea, no podemos seguir teniendo lluvias torrenciales que arrastren toda la polución de las calles, que se lleve al mar, seguir contaminando el mar. El mar va a llegar a un punto de no retorno, donde ya el efecto tampón del que estamos viviendo un poco de ese efecto de neutralizar todo lo que echamos va a acabarse y de repente va a subir la acidez y nos vamos a quedar sin mar. Y cuando acabe el mar, ¿qué va a pasar con nosotros? Pues bueno, hasta aquí. Yo tengo hijos y no quiero que mis hijos vivan eso. Entonces, pues bueno, perdón que me enrollo.
No, no te preocupes. Kathryn,
Can you put my PowerPoint back up?
I don't know how to do it.
Is it possible?
Necesitamos un técnico.
And you answer while he's putting up the PowerPoint, then I'll answer at the end.
Tendrás que salir ahí.
No, I mean neither. I know.
Estará en el escritorio, ¿no?
Yeah. So the reason I'm asking for this, there's a project I didn't show you, and it's the next slide, and it's about adaptive analysis. It's okay, I'll just talk to it. Oh, perfect. Okay, go to the very end. Very end. Yeah. And how do I get to the end? Oh, okay. I can do that. Yeah. Okay. Hold on. I'm going to talk while I'm doing this. Okay. There's not one solution. I think the real true thing is to understand it's multiple solutions that are going to solve this. And you have to, no, that goes fast. Wow. Yay. Okay. A little bit complicated here, but we're going to get there. One more. Yeah. One more. Come on. Okay. Washington, D.C., tidal basin. It's flooding. And the problem is adaptive change, right? So adaptive change on when you think you have a solution and it doesn't work, you adapt it, right? And so this is the diagram. It's adaptive management. And so what happens is you start with a system of management, right? And this is over 100 years, this project. And you start that here and you work on it, you design it, right? And 30 years later, you relook at it. Did we get it right? Did we get it wrong? How do you change it? Then you can see here we go to 220 to 240 and we say, we implement, but then we start monitoring it. And maybe at 40 years we go, we got to evaluate this. Did we do it right? What have we learned? How do we change it? The problem is we think we're going to get one system to solve it. We're not going to get one system to solve it. But if you don't teach your politicians to constantly reevaluate, constantly adapt, and it's not going to be one system that's going to solve it. It's going to be multiple. The more that I see cities do multiple types of transportation and not try to just do one, then you get a lot of diversity about how people move, how people do things. So you have tramway here, bicycle here, this here. And I think this idea that we're going to get one solution is crazy. It's never going to happen, but you've got to reevaluate constantly.
Different scales and
It's, you know, is that corridor going to work? And when it doesn't, why didn't it? And you change it, but you have to not just throw up your hands and say, but it has to be built into the plan that you reevaluate it. And I think that's, yeah. Is that clear?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's all. I'm done.
A multi-scale approach to the solution
And evaluation
and evaluation.
and reevaluate.
Arturo. No, eso yo preferiría una última opinión tuya. Sí, ya para acabar, digamos,
Bueno,
las intervenciones.
No me deja irme sin...
No.
El futuro. Yo creo que, bueno, básicamente creo que el cambio mental que tenemos que hacer es que ya hemos construido demasiado. O sea, tenemos el territorio destrozado, lleno de carreteras, líneas eléctricas, gasolineras, bueno, de todo, ruido, lo que yo le llamo ruido, ¿no? Y tenemos que empezar a pensar en reparar. El progreso es no... Siempre tenemos que tirar para adelante, no podemos quedarnos parados y la manera de tirar para adelante es mejorar, pero no mejorar construyendo más, mejorar reparando todo lo que hemos estropeado. Y bueno, esto parece una tontería, pero no lo es porque acabamos de estrenar la autovía que va por toda la marjal de Cullera y hay un desastre impresionante, estrenado hace 2 años y o sea, seguimos destrozando paisaje todavía porque seguimos con modelos antiguos. Y eso lo tenemos que olvidar por completo y cambiar de objetivo, ¿no?
Muchísimas gracias, Miguel, Marta, Kathryn. Of course, it's been an honor and a pleasure. Muchísimas gracias, Arturo. Y yo diría, para acabar, que hay, y por dar una mínima opinión, disiento de esta negatividad, primero porque estáis vosotros aquí, que estáis demandando soluciones desde puntos de vista distintos. Porque estáis no solamente vosotros, sino todos vosotros aquí, aportando nuevas realidades y también, por supuesto, con debates importantes, políticos, sociales y culturales. No solamente vosotros los que estamos y nosotros los que estamos aquí desde la divulgación, desde la arquitectura, desde el diseño, desde el pensamiento. También disiento porque con los estudiantes que están en diversos ámbitos y con los que trabajo, todos están comprometidos, lo tienen muy claro y desde países como India, como China, como Sudáfrica, como Corea, hay esperanza. Muchísimas gracias. Tengo que dar las gracias, por supuesto, a los que apoyan y han dado vida a esta jornada, como es Rainbird, Hydrostank y Paymed. Y, por supuesto, al Colegio Territorial de Arquitectos de Valencia. Muchísimas gracias.